Chuck Bargeron back up for our final presentation of today's EDDMap Summit, and then we will have time for Q&A. So again, we have, oh my gosh, over 60 questions already answered in the Q&A. I love the engagement with this audience, so thank you so much for being engaged, and feel free to keep putting those questions in the Q&A box, and we'll have a little bit of time after Chuck's presentation. All right, Chuck, looks good. Take it away.
Sounds good, and thank y'all for sticking around. And again, I want to make sure I thank NASMA and our sponsors for helping this come together today. So I'm going to try to wrap us up with looking at some of the things that are in queue that are going to be happening soon, as well as some of the directions that we're going and directions that we all need to go kind of moving forward. So I'm going to start off, and I'm just going to mention a few of the systems that EDDMapS is linked to or that are part of EDDMapS but branded differently, and then what's coming, what's next, and kind of summarize things. So first of all, with the linked systems, iBiocontrol is a website that is everything biocontrol. And if you're interested in biocontrol, I suggest you check that out. There's a huge amount of databases and publications that are part of that website. But there's also the EDDMapS biocontrol part, or the biocontrol part of EDDMapS is on that website, as well as links to the iBiocontrol app, which is an app used to help track biocontrol releases and occurrences. WildSpotter, we talked a lot about this last year. It is our citizen science program initially focused on reporting invasive species in the national forest, but built to be a platform for all public lands. Sort of an EDDMapS light is the best way of looking at it. We brought in a lot of partners for this program, and stay tuned because there's going to be some big announcements related to WildSpotter in the coming months. ISM Track's been mentioned a few times. Monica mentioned it. It is our closed system for people that want to track exactly what work was done on a daily basis. And so it's currently being used in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and we launched it last week in Alberta as well. And if this is something you're interested in, because of the sensitivity of the information, we have to handle it a little bit differently. And so this is not something that will be available to everybody, but if it's something your organization or your state is interested in using, then please reach out to us and we can give you more information about it. Agpas Monitor is the ag side of EDDMapS, really focused on tracking some of the more native pests and diseases, and just providing an interface for that that's just a little bit different than the more invasive interface of EDDMapS. And then SIPA, I'm just going to mention it, is a tool that was developed to help prioritize infestations and treatments on infestations. And this was originally built in Florida, and it's being used now in Utah to help rank their grants. And again, if you need more information on that, please reach out to us. All right, so next, what's coming? Here are some of the things that we're working on in the next year. We've been talking about this for a while, but really amping up what our education and outreach effort for EDDMapS is, having more materials available for download, and having that, continuing to build the library, which includes things like the summit, as tools that users can download and implement. We're working on a report builder. So if you have a specific report form that you want that still collects the basic information it needs to collect, then you'll have the ability to go in and tweak the forms at a project level, at a program level, and be able to, collect data in the format that you need it collected for your. Over the next year, we're going to be updating the advanced query tool, making it where as you're choosing columns and information on the advanced query tool, it kind of gives you instant feedback on how many records you're going to expect, and modernizing that form. And then we're working on an automated data upload tool to help initially, to help Rebecca as data comes in, so it can be kind of read by the computer, and the computer can go, okay, this has what we need, we can move it on. Or it can be looked at and go, oh, this is missing this, send it back to the person that submitted it and let them update it, and then they can resubmit it. So ultimately, that's going to be a tool that will help streamline getting data into EDDMapS from other data sources moving. We're adding some new features to the website, just some quick things, some tweaks to the advanced query tool where you can query by date of last revisit or just query the revisits out. That'll be part of that advanced query tool update. And then being able to do contestments of records or edit your own records from the record detail page, something that you're not currently able to do, as well as a bulk download of images from photo projects. On the naturalist side of things, we're looking at ways to do triage at the county level and then filter those species that show up at the state level by your state noxious weed list. So it makes it easier to ignore certain species that may not be priority, or even exclude the ones that are on your list and then quickly view the ones that show up that are not, so you can, exclude those as well. And then finally, incorporating email notifications as new records are moved over from iNaturalist into the triage. So within EDDMapS Pro, something we've talked about doing that you currently cannot do is if you're looking for a particular record and you have that record ID, being able to enter that record ID into a pop-up on the phone and zoom directly to that point. I think that will be great for users that are trying to get back to a certain point and they know where it is, but trying to find it on the map can be difficult sometimes. And same thing with being able to zoom to a particular project area, being able to, upload your KML of the project area, but then quickly get to it. And a solution right now, you have to kind of click through the points on the iOS in order to see points that are stacked on top of each other. And we're going to implementing a solution for this. Something we're really excited about that I think is going to be great for a lot of our users and partners out there is over the next 18 months or so, we are going to be building Bugwood/EDDMapS plugins for WordPress and Drupal. So if you have a website that is built on WordPress or Drupal, which are two of the more popular platforms for building websites, you're going to have these plugins that make it very easy to integrate images from Bugwood, resources and presentations for Bugwood, but also the EDDMapS distribution maps and the EDDMapS reporting forms without having to know coding. If you know how to use the WordPress or Drupal platform, it will just be a plugin like the other plugins you use for other tasks. So really excited about that. That was through some USDA APHIS PPQ Plant Protection Act funding that we were able to get this year, and we're working with Purdue and the Pest Tracker NAPAS program as part of this as well. All right, so the new EDDMapS service desks. So in the coming weeks, you're going to see a red question mark in the corner of every web EDDMapS page, and that will be what we're calling the service desk. So you click on that. It's going to give you a pop-up and it's going to say, hey, how can we help you? And one of that ways will be to report an issue with EDDMapS. So you'll be able to click there, click on report an issue with EDDMapS, put in what the issue you had was for that, and description, your contact information, and it goes into our project management software. So us and our programmers are alerted of it and can help solve it in a quick fashion, and then ultimately build a library of these frequently asked questions so users can be able to reference those when they have a problem and see if somebody else has already had that problem and have a solution. Something we're really excited about, and we've talked about this for a while, but now we've got dates on the calendar for virtual office hours. We're going to do those on the third Friday of every month, starting in April. And they will run from 11 o'clock till 12:30 Eastern, 11 to 12, and we'll have some buffer time if questions go on longer than that. And so the first one's going to be on April 15th, and based on the number of questions that we've already gotten today about projects, we're going to focus that one on projects and really give you the opportunity to talk to us and answer your questions and have some short presentations. We pretty much know we're going to do EDDMapS Pro in May and maybe more on verification in June, but we're open to other topics. You're going to get a survey after this, and please let us know if there's other topics but this will be a great way for there to be like a monthly check-in. And if you have questions, us to be able to address those, and we'll see how they go in terms of registration and determine, exactly what the format. All of these will be recorded and made available through the EDDMapS website. And I've already put the registration link to the April 15th office hours on the tools and training, on the training page of EDDMapS. So if you go to tools and training, click on training, then right there at the top is the registration for the April 15th office hours. So please join us and be on the lookout for future announcements for that. But this page will be continually updated with the other dates, as well as links for registration as we make those available. All right, so what's next? One thing we got a question a lot about today, and we've been testing over the last year really, is a service where all the public EDDMapS points are being published out to ArcGIS online. And so you would be able to connect to that and use the data, pull the data into your ArcGIS platform. And so this is something we're definitely still in the test phase, but a few of our partners have used it with a lot of success, and it just pulls in all, basic information about the records, but all that data in where you can pull it into your desktop ArcGIS software or integrate it into your various applications. So if you're interested in this tool going forward, please reach out and we can provide more information and let you test it out as we figure out exactly where we're going to go with this. But we built EDDMapS on the web to focus on making things easy and for people that do not use GIS software. And that has its pros and cons, but all of the data from EDDMapS is mirrored onto an ArcGIS server. So that's why we're able to do some of these things, but they're not built directly into the EDDMapS website, because we want to try to make that for people that don't know how to use ArcGIS to be able to easily use it. Drones are something that are being used in a lot of different ways for treating invasive species and mapping invasive species. And we said, okay, well, how can we use drones with EDDMapS? And so I had somebody come to me and they had taken a lot of drone photography, but they were trying to figure out what to do with it, how to make it easy to use, how to make it easy to view. So we said, well, you know what, that drone imagery is from an area that you're working in. And if we can make it where you can take that and convert it into the map tiles that we use in EDDMapS Pro, then that would be a great enhancement in a way that, make that drone photography useful and be able to look at it over time. So one of the things we're moving toward, and here's just an example of some of that high-res drone photography over some parks outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and just being able to take that for a small project area. You're talking about a couple of gigs worth of data that but this is the area you're working and you need that high resolution photography for that. So it makes it a little bit hard with the tree canopy like you have in these examples, but moving forward for areas where there's not tree canopy, being able to take drone imagery and integrate it into EDDMapS Pro is something we're moving to in the future. Apple released these AirTags. These Bluetooth beacons are something that are getting used more and more. One of the things we're looking in is to find a very simple device like this that could be integrated into the EDDMapS apps and be used to very easily track data when you're doing treatments. So you don't have to pull the app out, but if these buttons were encoded to do different things and there was a reliable connection between the device and your phone, then you could have a way to collect data very easily in the field and integrate it into EDDMapS very cheaply. So we're testing out some of these Bluetooth beacons. The first ones we tested out that were very low power, we weren't getting a reliable signal to the phone. So we said, okay, let's try something else. And so now we're trying these. We've got some of these on order to take a look at and see, okay, can we do something that would make it very easy when you're spraying to have a physical button to push. Gamification is something we've talked about a lot through the years, and we're still looking at ways to make that fun part of reporting for users that need that incentive to report invasive species. So we're looking at some different ways to integrate gamification through badges and other things into the EDDMapS platform. I get the question all the time about image recognition within the mobile operating systems has really improved over the last few years. Google Lens, and then Apple's doing some optical character recognition, as well as if you search your photos now on your phone by keyword, it will help find pictures of that keyword, even if they're not labeled as that. So my hope is that there's going to be ways that the image recognition is more built into the app, the smartphone operating systems, and with that, we will be able to work into that without spending the money that it would cost to build our own image recognition system, or to be able to do that and have something that's reliable, which is really, there's no reason to implement it if it's not doing a good job of identification. So, you know, we started with EDDMapS, we've updated to, you know, releasing the new version of EDDMapS Pro and the new EDDMapS app and website and Agpas Monitor. We added the Canadian integration and some new maps and tools. We're going to be updating the I've Got One app to be a little more public friendly app. We're building the EDDMapS educational portal, kind of breaking out the tools into different groups. We're going to be retiring the apps and then working on what the next generation of apps work with. So we've got this plan that continues to change as things change, but we're continuing to plan out and look to the future and work with our partners to figure out what's needed and where we can move this platform forward. So in summary, I've got a few summaries here, so I'm just going to go through them a couple of times. But, you know, for this tool in general, you know, think about the partnerships that you build. You know, if you're building a SISMA, this is a good way as you build that SISMA to collect data within your cooperative invasive species management area. Sorry to use the abbreviations, but to collect data to train users on how to identify things, and then here's something they can do to integrate that knowledge. We've tried to make it as easy as possible, you know, using early detection and rapid response as an educational tool, but you've got to have that rapid response infrastructure once something is found. And there's always going to, like Justin said, there's always going to be different responses to different species. And then find ways to show your successes and use the tools that are available to you. Everything we've talked about today, you know, is tools that you don't have to pay $2.99 as a user to download the app and put it on your phone. So, you know, the website is free to use, the apps are free to use, so take advantage of that and use them to help with your program. I was asked to do a presentation about where we were going to be in 2040, and so I wanted to include that in here because I really want us to think about the fact that we can build all the tools that we want. We can have all the invasive species programs we want. But if we're just talking to the invasive species community, we're not going to get very far. We've got to figure out how to engage non-traditional audiences and bring them in, get them interested in invasive species, and get them caring about the problem and get them reporting things when they see it. So when they see something, they say something, as Justin said. We've got to tell our story better. When we have successes, you know, it can get depressing working in invasive species and there always being something, a new species that comes up or a new problem. But let's talk about our successes and talk about ways that we can tell our story better and really support this. Let's expand the Wild Spotter platform to all public lands in the US and Canada. That is something that we can do, and it's just requiring all the agencies to work together to make it happen. Let's get boot brush stations and signs at every trailhead talking about invasive species, cleaning stations at every boat launch. Let's find ways to make that happen over the next 20 years so the public has more and more awareness. And then as new technology becomes available, whatever that may be, use that and embrace it as it becomes available. One of the things that's happened with COVID is the concept of responsible recreation. And here's a sign from Glacier National Park, and it's got, you know, stay 6 feet apart. It's got leave no trace. It's got clean up after yourself. What it needs to do is look out for and recognize invasive species. There needs to be a fourth line on this, and it's going to take all of us working together to get to that. And then, use social media, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever tool you're using, use social media, to promote within your communities reporting invasive species and learning more about invasive species. And let's not work in silos. As we have programs like Play Clean Go and others, let's integrate other messages into that. So here's an example of Play Clean Go with reporting the EDDMapS. And so let's figure out ways that we combine messages and do not confuse the public as we move forward on stuff. And then at the end of the day, remember what your goals are. Remember that you're putting a point on the map because you're hopefully going to go back and treat it or pull it or whatever you're going to do to it so you can get rid of that species. There's no reason to spend a lot of time, money, and effort on mapping if you're not going to go back and do something about that. And so that's where we've got to push to make invasive species an environmental issue at the level of other environmental issues. So there's funding and there's support for all of us to do what we do. And that comes to my wrap up. We need the funding to flow through state, provincial, regional networks down to local projects on the ground. There needs to be planning across at the landscape level that then helps us do things at that ground level. We need to use tools like EDDMapS so we can look at the picture across different jurisdictions, and we need to make sure that we talk about invasive species using a standardized language and not using anything that may offend somebody. I want to thank all the different groups that throughout the last 15 years or so that have helped support EDDMapS and get us to the point we are today. This has really been a partnership, and there's icons and logos that are probably left out of here, but it's really a partnership of a lot of different groups to make everything happen that you see today. And I want to thank the team, Joe and Rebecca, who have both spoken today, as well as all of our staff and programmers that make things happen behind the scenes, that add a link to the virtual meeting while we're doing presentations and make the apps work and make the website work. And it's really a team approach, and I want to make sure we thank them. So we've thrown a lot of information at you today, and I just wanted to summarize it a little bit, and then let's go into the questions if people have any. We've got new projects feature that to make it easier to collect and manage data. We looked at some different perspectives, not one right, not one wrong, on using points and polygons and why different groups have done different things. People have been at this for a long time now. And so my hope with those presentations was to help answer questions you may have and help make it easier for you to figure out how you're going to do things in your area. We looked at different ways to download, receive alerts, and save queries. We talked about how data can be used at the state level to change policy and help get more funding. We talked about how, Justin talked about the see something, say something, and how the public is so important in getting all of these species reported and get that, how important that awareness is. And then the updates to the verification process where that is a part that has to happen behind the scenes, so the data that you get when you go to EDDMapS is useful and is correct. And then finally, as I finish up these new tools, the directions we're going with some stuff, and then, the opportunities throughout the year for you to join us and interact with us, as well as the new support. Hopefully next year we'll be in a big room doing this in person and then streaming it online as well. And we'll be able to better interact and break out into different work groups and all. So thanks everybody for coming. You will be getting a survey from NASMA in the next couple of days, and please fill that out because that will affect what we do in the future and how we structure this in the future. There's my email address. I'll be glad to put it in the chat and reach out to me especially if you have very specific questions, please reach out to us. And we'll schedule some time, either respond by email or schedule some time to talk to you. Again, thanks NASMA and our sponsors. And I want to reiterate the NASMA conference. This will be this fall in Fort Myers area in Florida. So with that, all the panelists that are still able to be on are available, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you so much, Chuck. And to all of our panelists and all the sponsors and organizers, this was an outstanding event. Thank you so very much. And there's lots of praise coming in for all of you in the chat, lots of thank yous. So know that your time today sharing with us and teaching us is very much appreciated.